Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for swinging by. I sure do appreciate it. If this is your first time with the channel, my name is Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Welcome to Fit and Fire. Let's get into this video. This time we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're actually going to be looking at an ammunition, a brand new ammunition this year from Hornady. It's the 338 ARC. And this round is actually quite interesting. Now, is it going to be the end-all be-all for certain applications? I don't know. A lot of people have said that this is something that's going to unseat 8.6 Blackout. Not sure about that as well. But at the very least, this cartridge has been something that I have had a lot of fun looking at and kind of testing and stuff like that. Before we get into the video though, a couple of different questions for you guys. Number one is, what do you think of 338 ARC? Is this all it's cracked up to be, or is it just a bit of a fad? If you're familiar with it, let me know down in the comment section down below. Number two is, let me know what you think about this video. This is kind of the first time I've ever done anything like this where I'm concentrating mostly on a caliber instead of a firearm and doing some ballistic testing, looking at velocities and that type of stuff. And I could really use your constructive criticism as to how to improve these videos. Now, naturally, there are tons of videos out on the YouTubes with 338 ARC. Two of the best ones that I've seen so far is from people like Ballistics, where he actually compares 338 ARC to 8.6 Blackout, and Micah Mayfield. There's some other good videos out there, but they're from individuals that I'm not familiar with. I don't recall their name, but I've seen some really good videos on this caliber as well. Now, full disclosure, I'm not getting paid to say anything good, bad, or indifferent about this or the platform that I'll be using to test this caliber in, which is going to be the CMMG Dissent, which is this right here. We'll talk about more about that here in just a second, but naturally, I'm not getting paid to say anything good, bad, or indifferent about this from Hornady or CMMG. We're going to talk about the good with the bad, let you guys decide whether or not this is going to be right for you. I did receive the Dissent from CMMG to test this caliber, so a huge thank you to them for supporting the channel in that manner, and more importantly, thank you to Clear Ballistics. They sent me out 2 gel blocks to basically do some ballistic testing to capture some of these rounds to look at how well that they're doing. We'll talk about that because that's an area that I kind of flubbed up, but needless to say, we'll look into that as well. So I do appreciate their support of the channel. If you guys are interested, I'd really encourage you guys to, at the very minimum, take your defensive ammo, regardless if that is your rifle for home defense or your concealed carry pistol, and do some ballistic testing. I've done that already with some of my carry stuff. I've done it with a Makarov as well, and have been very pleased with what Clear Ballistics gel is kind of telling me as far as what my choices for defensive ammo has done as well. Finally, a huge thank you to American Cash Exchange. That's my home away from home. That's my local shop. They are the ones who are able to get me the ammunition, and they helped out a little bit, gave me a small little discount on it. But that is going to be another point that we're going to be talking about. So if you're in the Manhattan, Kansas area, swing by American Cash Exchange and let them know I sent you. I'd appreciate it. Okay, so let's get into it. The 338 ARC is a caliber that was released this year by Hornady, and that is actually a big clue as to how serious Hornady is about trying to come up with something that is going to not only quote-unquote outperform 8.6 Blackout like they claim it will, but also challenge the popularity of 300 Blackout. So they have 2 different offerings. They have a 175 grain boat tail hollow point Hornady Black cartridge, and then they have this one right here, which is the 307 grain Sub-X Hornady subsonic offering as well. And this ammunition is really, really interesting. Regardless if it is the supersonic or subsonic, the projectile is actually longer than the shell casing is, and that actually is a really important aspect as to why this ammunition is able to perform as well as it does. So we'll get into that here just real quick, but I want to talk about the Dissent firearm that CMMG did send to me. This is actually pretty interesting. I've been wanting to get my hands on one of these just to kind of see what they're about. They did send it to me for me to include in this video. And this is going to be an AR adjacent firearm, very similar to that of like a AR 180 or a BRN 180, AR 18, whatever you want to call it. So bufferless design, recoil is going to be up here in the upper receiver. You're going to have a forward side charging handle, ambidextrous controls for the slide selector and magazine release. Your bolt release is not going to be ambidextrous because you have your forward controls and then your paddle here as well. So if you're left-handed, you can switch this over to the other side, and there you have it. This is going to be a 10.5 inch barrel that has a 1 in 8 twist, and that's something that's really important. Is that's a more common twist rate than that of the 8.6 Blackout, which is a 1 in 3 twist rate. So there is that. Not as hard to produce, I would say. I'm not 100% sure, but needless to say, that is an area that I found very interesting. On the back here, it does have a Picatinny section for you to add either a brace or a stock should you choose to form one it. This is a SIG style brace, so not too bad. It folds up pretty nice, and one of the interesting things about this, and one of the interesting things about 338 Art, as I let the cat out of the bag, is the fact that this can be suppressed by a pistol caliber can. This is the Rugged Obsidian 9. This is what I've been using for the subsonic offerings. I did suppress the supersonic, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But for the majority of this video that I am looking into this, the Obsidian 9 has been what I've been using. I talked to them directly while I was at SHOT Show about this, and they're like, you know what, run it. If it breaks, we'll fix it. But needless to say, hadn't need to worry about that because the 9mm can is working just fine. So naturally, if you guys get into 338 ARC and you want to run your pistol caliber can, check the restrictions that you may have on that can to make sure that you're not going to damage it by using this caliber, but it should be just fine. So 100% reliable on this, which is actually pretty surprising based off some of the things that I've seen on other videos when it comes to this chambering. So very surprised and very happy with that. One of the interesting things is that this is going to be utilizing 400 Legend magazines. That's what came with this firearm, and I've been running 2 different magazines. They've actually been running very well, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But let's get into some of the testing that I did for the 338 ARC, starting with the 175 grain boat tail hollow point Hornady black cartridge. This is the one that I started off with, and naturally I did start off without it being suppressed because I didn't want to damage my can. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. But needless to say, we did get some velocities on this, and I will say that the velocities were very similar to that of 30-30. Now keep in mind this is a 10.5 inch barrel. My 30-30 out of a 16-inch barrel on my Winchester 336 was hovering around that 2,300 feet per second mark, whereas this is going to be at 1,970.3 feet per second with an extreme spread of 18.1 feet per second and a standard deviation of 6.9 feet per second. So that was something I found very interesting. The standard deviation was actually smaller than I was expecting, so that's pretty nice. And I do appreciate the Garmin Zero capturing all that data for me as well. But needless to say, very similar to 30-30, not only in its velocities, but also its recoil impulse as well, in my opinion. So that was pretty interesting. Now the accuracy that I was getting at 50 yards was not terrible. It wasn't great, but it wasn't horrible either. So that is something that I will have to try to look at again in the future, because testing accuracy on a brand new firearm with only about 20 rounds through it really isn't fair to the firearm or the cartridge itself. So keep that in mind. Extensive testing will need to be done. So one of the first things that I did do once I got the velocities is I did put it into the ballistics gel, and I was hoping to capture the first round, but unfortunately that thing blew right through the 16-inch ballistics gel and 3 gallons of water, and still had enough energy to bury itself into the ground behind my target. So I was unable to capture that first one, and that's one of the big mistakes. I should have put both of the gel blocks together, but I thought that I could maybe capture it in the gallons of water. So lesson learned on that piece of it, but very interesting data point there that the ballistics gel did not stop it one bit, and 3 gallons of water didn't even stop it as well. So that was something I found very interesting. Okay, so here's the gel block. As you can see, we have a separation in the bullet itself. The tip of it is curved down here, and then the rest of it shot all the way through the block. So this is a 16-inch block. As you can see, the table is now deformed, so a lot of pressure coming down. The first jug was right here and just completely devastated that jug, as you would expect. The second jug, I believe, is right here, was off to the side, and was, I believe it was this right here, and then the third jug behind it caught it here and came out the bottom, coming out right here. So I looked down on the ground. I couldn't find the other piece of the jacket. I'll continue to look, but needless to say, this is very interesting. Obviously 16-inch, or just about 15 3/4 inch gel block. Wound channel starting at about 7 1/4 inches. We got a wound channel of approximately 5 1/2 inches. And then the tip of the bullet made it to about 13 1/2 inches. So interesting results. Let's turn it on its top so you guys can see there. You can see the wound channel. I'm going to try to get the subsonic in here as well. See if I can put it a little higher, but we'll see what we can do. The next thing that I did do was I also put a pork shoulder in front of the ballistics gel, thinking that maybe that would slow it down just ever so slightly to capture it in the gel, and the answer to that is no. The supersonic 175 grain boat tail hollow point zipped right through that pork shoulder, straight through the ballistics gel, yawed in the ballistics gel, and then exited out of the gel like 20 yards into the berm. It was pretty crazy. Here's a video of that. All right, so here's your entrance right here. Exit is just a laser beam right through it. Nothing going on the inside. And then in the gel block, looking down, we can see that this thing yawed and separated, and this ended up coming all the way through, passed through here, and this is the damage on the table. It yawed over this direction and went to look for it, can't find it. So very interesting turn of events. As you can see, here's the jacket, or the tip of the bullet on the first one. Here it is on the second one. So obviously not as far, but if we stack this back up, looking at about 14 inches, and yeah, at about 14 inches there too. So pretty dang consistent on both of those when it comes to where that's separating. So here's a little bit more of the side view, as you can see. Very interesting. So the jacket just separated which I'm going to assume the second one did the same. And it is, yeah, that's it. So interesting developments in how this shaped up. So that was pretty interesting. One of the other things that I did do is compare the supersonic and subsonic offerings with a can that could handle both, with the correct diameter on the can as well, and that was going to be the AB10 from AB Suppressors. That is actually one of the cans that a local guy here with Ryko Gunworks, thank you for letting me borrow that, but needless to say, he really likes those, and I've seen them gain popularity in a lot of the two-gun matches that I shoot here locally as well. So here is what supersonic and subsonic sound like at 25 yards on a very windy day. Okay, so a very windy day, but I want to try to get you guys some sounds as to what it sounds like kind of up close. We're going to run 2 rounds supersonic and then 2 rounds subsonic through the AB Raptor. So this is going to be something that can handle both sub and supersonic firearms. So here we go. Okay, so now the subsonics. Okay, so out of those 4 rounds of supers, obviously much more of a crack as you would expect, but the subs were pretty nice. So I'm gonna, okay, same experiment at 25 yards, again, very windy, so hopefully this translates. So there's your sound comparison, if that is a data point that you're interested in. Now let's switch over to the 307 grain Sub-X offering that Hornady has released. And by the way, these are the only 2 offerings that I'm aware of. If there's others, let me know down in the comment section. But at the time of me filming all the B-roll for you guys on the testing of it, this is what I was able to find. Now, the velocity on this is exactly what you'd expect for a subsonic round, but the surprising aspect of it is that this was able to maintain an average velocity of 1,012.8 feet per second with a 307 grain bullet. That is something that I was actually very interested to see. The extreme spread was 27.2 feet per second, and the standard deviation was 7.7 feet per second. So again, still pretty consistent in between those 2 different offerings that Hornady is releasing. The next thing that I did was naturally kind of look at the point of aim, point of impact with a 50-yard zero for the 175 grain and how that changed with it being unsuppressed and then suppressed. So here's that. Moving up here, this was the aiming point, changing nothing with the zero of the 307 grain subsonic. This right here is the group without the can, so a little over quarter size group at 50 yards, and then here was with the can. You can see a massive shift in point of impact, about 3 inches high at 50 yards, and probably a 2-inch group. From there, I did take it over to the Ballistics gel, and again, only using 1 block. I thought maybe that I could capture that using a gallon jug, and that was a complete failure. Switched over to the pork shoulder and thought maybe that would help slow it down just enough to capture it, but again, that wasn't something I was able to do either. It skipped off the table and then hit a berm about 20 yards behind the target as well. So entrance is going to be right here, and then here is your exit. Looking here, there's your entrance, got jacket separation already. There is your polymer tip, and again 100% pass through, and you can even see right here scuff where the round came out, scuffed here, and then went all the way to the berm again. So subsonics are packing quite the wallop for sure. So what I ended up doing is went back out to the range and set both gel blocks, and it was like, if it passes through both of these, then I don't know what to tell you. But luckily enough for me, surprisingly too, is that I was able to capture 2 rounds in the second gel block, both of which didn't actually penetrate much further than I was expecting into the second gel block. But here's what those look like. All right, as you can see, we've got good spin. It lost its ballistic tip there, fragmented a little bit, and then we have it lodged right there. All right, so second one, pretty much the same. Lost its ballistic tip, but it appears that it did mushroom a little bit better, still losing some of the jackets. Let's dig them out. Okay, so here's the 2 projectiles, and as you can see, really good expansion. Some of the jacket starting to peel away. So that was the first one. The second one, very similar. There's the polymer tip and expansion again. As you can see, some of the jacket is starting to separate as well. So needless to say, that was fairly interesting to see, and I really did enjoy being able to pull those out of the gel block and seeing how well those things mushroomed out. One of the other things that I did was went ahead and took the subsonic loads out to 300 yards. And that is something that I will tell you was very instrumental in this particular setup, because I was using the Primary Arms SLX 1-10 by 28 second focal plane Griffin reticle LPVO, and that is going to give me mil drops out to 12 mils, and at 300 yards with a what was it, a 100 yard zero, I believe it was, a 10 mil drop at 300 yards. So that was something I found very interesting. The other thing too is trying to figure out your arc on the subsonic stuff, because to be honest with you, I think the subsonic Sub-X cartridge is what most people are going to use for home protection and or for hunting purposes as well. Trying to find that arc, say like in 5.56, your 50 yard zero is going to arc and hit at 250 yards. That's what they call it, 50-250, right? This, at 150 yards, your zero is like 5 yards. So it's a 5 yard, 150 yard zero. It's crazy to see that kind of arc. So at 300 yards with a 100 yard zero, you are holding over 10 mils. I wasn't able to get consistent hits at 300 yards with the, I don't know, 8 rounds that I put down range, but I did ring steel at 300 yards. It was I think it's a 10 or 12 inch gong at 300 yards. And man, let me tell you, that round's hitting with purpose. You can definitely hear that thing hitting. And Needless to say, not the best, but that's what I had to work with. And I will say that this is going to be something that is probably going to be at most 200 yards and in type of cartridge to get consistent, accurate shots. 200s and in is probably what you should expect for the 338 ARC, especially with the subsonic load. The supersonic probably would do a little bit better, but I didn't test anything at distance, so sorry about that. Now, the downsides to 338 ARC, because there are a few. Number one is ammo availability. Again, we are talking about a cartridge that's going to be $1.75 to possibly even $2 per round. Most stores aren't even carrying it, so you're going to have to special order it. It's going to be obviously more difficult to obtain than 300 Blackout, but on the opposite side of 300 Blackout, it is going to be a bigger bullet, easier to suppress, have a lot more kinetic energy on target. So those are kind of some of the trade-offs. More expensive, but higher velocity or higher kinetic energy on target. So there is that. The next thing that has been a bit of an issue with 338 ARC and the different firearms that have been chambered in it is the magazines. As mentioned before, this is a 400 Legend magazine. CMMG did laser etch 338 ARC in here, but on the other side it does say 400 Legend. And I've had good luck. I will say that I've had good luck with the 2 magazines that were sent to me. This has worked out very well. However, as a whole, a lot of people have had issues finding magazines that will feed reliably. Mike Mayfield was using 6 ARC magazines, and he was able to get those to work about 90% of the time. The 400 Legend magazines that he had didn't seem to work very well, but again, I had good luck. So you have to kind of trade that off. In addition to that, 400 Legend magazines are only 10 round magazines. So that's another downside that the industry is going to have to figure out if this round is going to be viable for home defense or even hunting purposes. Now, for me, if I was to use this in a hunting role for coyotes, whitetail, even feral hogs, you know, 10 rounds, that may be enough. But if I was to use this for a home defense setup, I definitely would want a 3-round magazine because that's exactly how I would set up a 300 Blackout. So needless to say, this is a good option, but there's some small little nuances that you're going to have to figure out. Not only are the ballistics a little wonky in comparison to like 300 Blackout, you're going to have to figure out the magazine situation, figure out something that's going to work reliably, and then go from there. Now, the interesting thing that it comes to this caliber is that Hornady produced the round and then was like, okay, gun industry, it's your job to figure out how to make it work. So companies like CMMG, they've taken their Dissent, slapped on a 338 ARC barrel, and then am now scrambling to figure out how to feed it. Again, 400 Legend magazines has worked on my sample. Your results may vary, I don't know. But needless to say, I assume that we will see 338 ARC magazines in the future. I just would have figured that Hornady would have collaborated with a lot of different firearm manufacturers to say, okay, here's the deal. This round may not work in X type of magazines. You may have to devise your own. I imagine Magpul will figure that out here very shortly, but needless to say, that's what we're seeing when it comes to the 338 ARC. I've really liked the CMMG Dissent, regardless if it was in 338 ARC or maybe even 300 Blackout. I think that that is a really cool design for something like this that's going to be sought after to suppress. I mean, that's really the point of this round, is to put a lot of kinetic energy downrange with as quiet of a cartridge as possible. I think that this is it, which may, in the future, unseat 300 Blackout as availability becomes better, price comes down a bit, the firearm industry support of this round ends up being a little bit better. That will be yet to be seen, but hopefully that will change. Needless to say, this has been very interesting for me to test this and to kind of see a new cartridge out on the market. Hopefully we will get the gun industry to support it a little bit better, not only with the different offerings as far as firearms goes, but more importantly magazines as well. I would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comment section down below. Is this something that is going to be a game changer as far as 8.6 Blackout and 300 Blackout? Is this something that is going to work itself in between those two? Or is it a bit of a fad? Realistically, I think that this would be great for coyotes, whitetails, and hogs, but we'll see what that see what happens in the future. With all that being said, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. A lot of information down in the pinned comments, so definitely check that out, and I do appreciate you guys swinging by. As always, freedom through strength. Here comes a high five. Bye, y'all.